Well, once again, I have the privilege of welcoming Pete Baker from Life Church Lancashire for today's Breakfast Bite. Hi, Pete. How are you doing?
Hi, Nathan. I'm very good. Yeah, how are you?
Very well, thank you. And it's good to see you again. Looking forward to another Breakfast Bite. I presume another hero of the faith.
Yes. Yeah, today I wanted to think about Thomas, one of the 12 disciples of Jesus.
Oh, cool. We often know him as Doubting Thomas, I suppose.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So that's what I was kind of wanted to think about. Thomas, yeah, who we know as Doubting Thomas. So in John's Gospel, this is after the crucifixion, after the resurrection. We've got Thomas in John chapter 20. Thomas, one of the 12, was not with the disciples when Jesus came. So Jesus had revealed himself to the disciples, but Thomas wasn't there at the time. So the other disciples told him, "We've seen the Lord." Then he said to them, "Unless I see the nail marks in his hands and put my finger where his nails were and put my hand into his side, I will not believe," which I think is where we get the Doubting Thomas thing from. A week later, his disciples were in the house again, and Thomas was with them. Though the doors were locked, Jesus came and stood amongst them and said, "Peace be with you." Then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here, see my hands. Reach out your hand and put it into my side. Stop doubting and believe." Thomas said to him, "My Lord and my God." Then Jesus told him, "Because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who have seen me, who have not seen me, and yet believe." So that's John's Gospel, and Jesus there is talking about us. Thomas is one of the 12 disciples. Thomas sees the miracles of Jesus, and then after the resurrection, Thomas is unconvinced about did Jesus rise from the dead. He's unconvinced. And the other disciples see Jesus, and then Thomas says, "Unless I see it for myself, I will not believe." And a week later, Jesus then reveals himself to Thomas, and Thomas goes, "My Lord and my God." He comes to his realization of this is the Son of God. Jesus is not just another man, not just another teacher. This is the Son of God stood before me. And then Jesus has these powerful words, "Blessed are you because you can see. You believe because you can see. But so much more blessed are those who believe even though they do not see." So I wanted to encourage people today, particularly who maybe people who doubt, who have concerns, who have questions, maybe aren't totally convinced about the Christian faith. Join the club. Very much so similar to Thomas. Thomas, one of the 12, saw the miracles, knew Jesus very well, followed Jesus around for 3 years, was around the time of the crucifixion, and then sees the resurrected Christ, and sees it for himself. And then goes on to, this is not in the Gospels, this is not in the Bible, but Christian history tells us that Thomas then goes on to share the Christian faith with people in India. And a few years ago, I went to India, to Chennai in southern India. I was there visiting some friends who lead a Christian ministry. And they took me to St. Thomas Mount in Chennai. And you climb this mountain. At the top of this mountain is the place where Thomas was martyred, was killed for his faith. So Thomas became so convinced that Jesus was the Son of God, that Jesus had raised from the dead, that he then took the gospel to India. This is, before the British missionaries came to India, a few hundred years later. Thomas took the gospel to the nation of India 2,000 years ago. Just shortly after the life and death of Jesus, Thomas took the gospel to India and was killed for his faith on top of this mountain. And you can go to the exact spot where he was martyred for his faith. And that city, Chennai, is also known as Madras. And that means that the word Madras means, is where we get the word madrasa from, or monastery. So that the city literally means the city of the disciples, or the city of the disciple. It's a city where one of the disciples of Jesus was killed for his faith. Thomas, that's where he was killed for his faith, in India, in southern India. And that city, although it's a Hindu country, that city is absolutely full of churches. Everywhere you look, There's churches, Orthodox churches, big churches, small churches, house churches. It's the city of the disciples, Madrasa, Chennai. It's a city known for the faith of St. Thomas. So though we know him as Doubting Thomas, we have this story where he doubted, actually his doubt was the beginning of faith. And I'm doing the Alpha course at the moment with a number of people through our church. And I'm loving seeing this, that people maybe start in a position of doubt, but their doubt is the beginning of their faith journey. So maybe for you today, you listen to this and maybe you do have doubt, maybe you do have questions. That's good. That's not the opposite of faith. Actually, doubt can be the beginning of faith. Thomas's doubt led him to faith. And actually his faith conviction then led him to the other side of the planet. Took him from Israel to India and took the gospel to people that had never heard of this before. And 2,000 years later, that city is named the City of the Disciples, and there's followers of Jesus all over that city, who some of them trace their Christian heritage back to the British missionaries, but actually the Christian heritage in India goes all the way back to Thomas, who obviously was one of the disciples of Jesus. So just a really great character, one of our heroes of the faith. And partly what makes him heroic is his questions, his doubt. His doubt, not the opposite of faith. The opposite of faith is fear. Doubt is a part of faith. We can only really get to true faith through doubts, through questions. So I'd encourage you maybe to look at Alpha. The Alpha course, I'm doing it at church at the moment, alphacourse.org. Find out where your nearest church is that's running an Alpha course. It's a great place, a safe place to ask the big questions of life, to bring your doubt, to bring your questions. And as I said, the last few days, I've spent a lot of time with people who are asking these big questions of life and beginning their faith journey, but through doubt. So yeah, think about Thomas. If you've got doubt, that's okay, join the club. But don't let your doubt take you away from God. Actually bring it to God. Bring your questions to God. That's what Thomas did. And Thomas got to see the risen Christ and got to live for Jesus for the rest of his days. And Thomas's legacy is a city known as a City of the Disciples, Chennai in southern India. Yeah, so lots maybe to consider, to chew over this morning as you have your breakfast. Bless you. And thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Pete. Great hero of the faith. I think he's often labeled as Doubting Thomas, but I've heard it said that, how would the other disciples have been had they been in the same position? Had he swapped with one of them? Would they have been labeled as Doubting John or Doubting James or something? Yeah. It's amazing, isn't it? Actually, and you're right. Going through that doubt is how we get to faith, and it's not wrong to have questions. I think oftentimes we fear questions almost, but it is very healthy because when we've got through that question, that doubting, we get even stronger in our faith as a result.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, thanks so much, Pete. Really great breakfast bite for us today. Thank you so much, and I'll look forward to seeing you next week.
Yeah, bless you. Thank you.
Here at Pure 24/7 Radio, we have had the privilege of speaking to some amazing people with amazing stories.
So I was already doing the work of an evangelist, and then I discovered that there was a term for it. And then I realized, I really wanted to learn more about the Bible and Christianity. So I went to theological college.
Most people think that my life as a marine biologist was spent riding on the back of a dolphin into the sunset.
That's my view.
Yeah, I did that. Never.
Been on the road 35 years, man and boy, doing magic and comedy to communicate the gospel. When I started off in 88, I was doing escapology. I kind of took that on from a friend of mine called Pete Gilbert, who was a real pioneer in creative communication.
If you have missed any of these interviews or would like to hear them again, you can. Simply head over to our catch-up section at www.pure247radio.org. That's www.pure247radio.org.